There's something almost mythical about seeing a horse that shouldn't exist anymore. Not extinct exactly, but teetering on that razor-thin edge between survival and disappearance. These aren't your everyday stable horses, or the ones you'd find trotting through countryside ranches. These are breeds so rare that encountering one in person would be like stumbling upon a living ghost, a whisper from another era that somehow refused to fade away completely. Picture yourself standing in the harsh, windswept steppes of Central Asia, where the grass stretches endlessly and the sky seems bigger than anywhere else on Earth. The terrain here is brutal, unforgiving, a place where only the toughest creatures can endure. Mountains loom in the distance, their peaks dusted with snow even in summer. And the land itself tells stories of ancient civilizations that rose and fell like the seasons. If you wanted even a chance at glimpsing the Persolowski's horse, the rarest and perhaps most extraordinary equine on the planet. For decades, this breed didn't just teeter on extinction's edge, it actually crossed over. By the 1960s, not a single Przewalski's horse remained in the wild. They were gone, wiped out by hunting and habitat loss, and the relentless march of human expansion into their territory. But here's where the story takes a turn that feels almost miraculous. A handful of these horses had been captured and kept in zoos, and from those precious few individuals, scientists and conservationists launched one of the most ambitious resurrection projects in animal history. They weren't trying to bring back dinosaurs or woolly mammoths. They were fighting to return a living species to its rightful home. Today, around 2,000 Przewalski's horses exist, with several hundred galloping free across Mongolia's grasslands once again. These stocky, dung-colored horses with their mohawk-like manes aren't just rare. They're the last truly wild horses on Earth, never domesticated, carrying DNA that stretches back thousands of years unbroken. Every single one alive today descends from just 14 individuals. 14. That's the genetic bottleneck they squeezed through, the narrowest of passages between oblivion and existence. Now shift your mental landscape entirely. Leave the Asian steppes behind and imagine yourself transported to the cold, dramatic shores of the North Atlantic, where Iceland rises from the sea like something out of a fantasy novel. The climate here shaped everything, including the horses that the Vikings brought over 1,000 years ago. The Icelandic horse developed in near-total isolation, because Iceland did something almost unthinkable back in the year 982. They banned the import of any horses whatsoever. For over a millennium, no outside equine genetics have entered the country. Once an Icelandic horse leaves the island, it can never return, not even for a visit. This ironclad policy created something remarkable and vanishingly rare, a breed so pure, so genetically distinct, that it exists nowhere else on Earth in quite the same form. There are only about 80,000 Icelandic horses left worldwide, with roughly half still living on their native island. That might sound like a decent number compared to some critically endangered species, but consider this: these horses possess a fifth gait called the tet, a smooth, ground-covering stride that no other breed can naturally perform with such perfection. They're also remarkably sturdy, built low to the ground with thick coats, and an almost supernatural ability to navigate Iceland's treacherous terrain through blizzards and volcanic ash. The Vikings depended on these horses for survival in one of Earth's most hostile environments, and that relationship forged something unbreakable. But climate change now threatens their grazing lands, and their small genetic pool, despite being pure, means that any disease or environmental shift could devastate the population quickly. The Icelandic horse isn't just rare in numbers. It's rare in what it represents: a living connection to Viking culture, a genetic time capsule sealed off from the rest of the world's horses for 1,000 years. Let's journey once more, this time to the rolling green hills and misty coastlines of southwest England, where the climate turns temperate and damp. Cornwall and Devon present landscapes of ancient stone hedgerows, wind-bent trees, and moorlands that seem to exist in perpetual twilight, even under summer skies. The salt air carries memories of smugglers and shipwrecks, of tin mines that once drove the regional economy, and of a peculiar connection between humans and horses that stretches back to Roman times and possibly beyond. Here, clinging to existence with a tenacity that mirrors Cornwall's own fierce independence, lives the Cleveland Bay. Wait, you might think Cleveland isn't in Cornwall, and you'd be right. This breed originated further north in Yorkshire, but its story of near extinction plays out across Britain and represents something profound about how quickly we can lose what we take for granted. The Cleveland Bay is Britain's oldest established horse breed, a magnificent animal standing over 16 hands tall, always bay-coloured without any white markings beyond a small star on the forehead. These horses pulled carriages for nobility, worked the land for farmers, and carried their bloodlines into countless other breeds as foundation stock. They were everywhere once, indispensable, woven into the fabric of British life. Then mechanization arrived like a slow-moving storm. Tractors replaced workhorses, cars replaced carriages. By the 1960s, only 4 stallions remained in Britain capable of producing purebred Cleveland Bay. 4. The breed that had seemed eternal was 3 horses away from disappearing forever. Queen Elizabeth II herself intervened, breeding Cleveland Bays at the Royal Stud to preserve them, and slowly, carefully, the numbers began to recover. Today, perhaps 550 purebred Cleveland Bays exist worldwide, making them rarer than giant pandas. The breed remains critically endangered, listed as such by the Rare Breeds Survival Trust. And every single foalborn represents not just a new life, but a small victory against the relentless current pulling toward extinction. These 3 breeds share something beyond their rarity. They're survivors of different catastrophes, human-made and natural, each pulling through circumstances that should have erased them entirely. The Przewalski's horse conquered actual extinction. The Icelandic horse endured 1,000 years of isolation. The Cleveland Bay barely escaped obsolescence in a changing world. Their stories remind us that rarity isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about genetic uniqueness, cultural significance, and the fragile threads connecting past to present to future. Every time one of these rare horses is born, it's both an ending and a beginning, a closing of one chapter and the opening of another. And every time we lose a breed forever, we lose something irreplaceable, a unique combination of traits, and history that took thousands of years to create and can vanish in just decades. These horses are ghosts that refuse to disappear, and their continued existence depends entirely on whether we decide their stories matter enough to keep telling.